Good morning. Welcome to my YouTube channel. My name is David Okun. I am talking about the cost of living crisis. And thank you so much, everybody who have been helping, who have been supporting this channel by subscribing, by watching the video, sharing with family and friends, and doing very wonderful things. The cost of living is caused by poverty in the United Kingdom. And the cost of living is also a global phenomenon. It is not just in the United Kingdom. People need to be clear about this situation. And everyone across the globe. And it is about time the governments of the world come together to do something about the cost of living crisis. The cost of living crisis is income related, meaning people suffering from poverty are the ones actually suffering from the cost of living crisis. There is a difference between the cost of living and the cost of living crisis. Wealthy people, multimillionaires and multibillionaires, do not suffer from the cost of living crisis. Everybody suffers from the cost of living because that is the way development happens. And capitalism is a system of economy across the globe. It is now in the Western world, the Eastern world, in Africa, the Middle East, Europe, America, Asia, in Africa. So, like I have said before, whenever there is a problem, then there is a solution somewhere. It is for us to understand the problem and then set out to find solutions. Especially if you are a young person, do your best to participate, contribute, and understand what is happening in your world. Understand what is happening in the United Kingdom. I have been talking about the cost of living crisis so far. I've actually decided to consider certain specific financial support in the United Kingdom, and universal credit, which is actually money, is finance being given to people who need help. It is means tested, which means actually we have more than enough to live on. Then the government will make it clear to you whether or not you are able to get. If you live in the United Kingdom or elsewhere, it is still important to understand the issues happening in the United Kingdom. The issues whether of domestic significance, because we live in a globalized world. We live in a globalized world, therefore what happens in one country also happens in another country. We are actually becoming worlds without border, especially young people, especially people who live in Europe, America, Asia, but also people who live in Africa. Africa is modernizing. They are building cities and towns and communities. Villages are turning into urbanized, infrastructures, and wealth is actually on the increase, which is why I have said at the outset that the idea of poverty, which creates the cost of living crisis, should be a thing of the past. If there is a political will and a policy expedience and also a sense of peace, then politicians and their governments will do what they are sent to do, which actually to bring stability in society, eradicating poverty. If to be more specific, I have said this. I'm saying this again. Watch the rest of the video alongside this one, and also leave a comment below and let me know what you're thinking. This is a serious matter. It's a matter of life. Yes, look after yourself. Look after your family. If your children are becoming cleverer, the next generation are becoming cleverer than the older generation. They have more information. They have access to technology. They are campaigners on the issue of environmental, protection, which is a good thing. But we need to pay attention to our lives as individuals, people, in what I have referred to as the cultural economy. Cultural economy coherence is extremely important, and it is so important that we work together, black and white, male, female, children, adults. This is our life. This is our society. The cost of living, which I chose to speak about, is an opportunity for everyone to actually understand what goes on around the world. If there was no cost of living crisis, we would have missed out several opportunities, and the opportunities which are the reason now allow us to strengthen our lives as individuals, to empower our lives, and to do new things, new opportunities. In the past, we used to rely on the government to provide for us as communities, as societies. We were actually given to welfare system, hospitals, benefit, which is money or non-money, given as help, which is what I'm going to talk about shortly, as a continuation of what I already have been talking about. This is an exercise which to me is an opportunity. I hope you are valuing it. I hope you try to understand what is going on, and I will be continuing to talk. This is an opportunity, and encourage other people also to engage on this channel, on other platforms, because we live in a world of knowledge. If you have knowledge, especially if you're a young person, I really emphasize it. Young people can pray as much as they like. They can pray. If you believe in God, pray, and do whatever you want to do, and have fun. But have friends also. Have friends, because friendship is the source of happiness. If your parents are your friends, then you're lucky. If you're married, your partner. If you are friends, then you are lucky. If they are not your friend, if your parents are not your friend, then look for friends, because that is what makes you happy. If not, then be your own friend, so that you operate within your own scheme. Because life is about happiness. This is what I have actually packaged as a cultural economy. Culture simply means humanity, how humanity value itself, how humanity interact. In my opinion, if we actually realize our culture, if we learn our value, if we actually learn how to build relationships, if we learn to make friends, if we learn to be happy, if we learn to work as hard as possible to attain success, we do these things. Work relates to development, because development brings food on the table, which can access energy, housing, healthcare, transportation, whether airplane, air transport, sea transportation on sea. If you are lucky enough to have a boat, a motorboat, speedboat, or have a private train or a public train in the United Kingdom, in part of Africa, you hardly even see trains, because they are not there. And in big cities and communities, if you have Africa is a continent, the same as Europe. Europe is a continent. America is a continent. Asia is a continent. Some people say Africa is a country. There are 54 different countries in Africa. Mostly, it's a black country. If you like black people, they know where they come from. They come from Africa. If you don't like black people, also know where black people come from. Black people come from Africa. Leave a comment below if you like black people. Leave a comment below also if you don't like black people. And if you're a black person, if you like white people also, leave a comment below. If you don't like them, leave a comment below as well. But whether you are black or white, I don't think it matters at all, because we are both humans. You are tall or short, old or young, male or female. We are all human beings, so the respecting of people is really fundamental in the way we conduct ourselves. See, we have so many opportunities in modern society. I've been talking about technology. We live in exciting times, artificial intelligence, nanotechnology, robotics, 3D printer, you name them, they are coming, they are so fundamental in changing our society in terms of development. There are actually talks now of prolonging life. There are researchers, scientific research. When time permits, I will do a research and talk about things like that in the next years to come on this platform, so that we share information. Exciting things are coming. If we can live long, I mean, there are research being done to find out if we can live. Now we live on average about 100 years. A lot of people don't actually reach 100 years. So many people die at 80 years, 90 years. But if the research I'm talking about succeeds, then aging may be slowed, or even stopped, or even reversed. If we are living 100 years, then we may be living 200 to 300 years. There are experiments, there are evidence to show that there are possibility of this happening. And there are also possibility that people who have died can be brought back to life, because life is information. Your body, your lungs, your organs are actually, when your organs stop functioning, then the body declares you. I am told, leave it comment below. I heard that there is a cell in our brain which instructs the rest of the body system to shut down, to try and save our lives. So death is the way of saving our lives, because it actually protects our data, the information, because our bodies, our DNA, the basic building block is data, is information. If it is protected by a good process, I don't know what good should be a good process of dying. I understand we are preserved. Death is a preservative, which means if we find the means, the technology to collect this data and put them together again, then we will build the capacity, gain the capacity to bring people who die back to life, your loved ones. Death is a very serious issue, because you see, we cannot control death. We can control so many things. If you die, you die. We grow old, which means we are actually dying, because we cannot control aging. But there is hope with technology, and that's why, in as much as technology, I keep saying on this video that technology is actually taking jobs away. Jobs is a fundamental aspect of development, because we need income, and the primary source of income in the United Kingdom, and also anywhere else in the developed world, in the developing world, in modern societies, we work at in industrial scale. We earn a living. But when technology comes, which it has already come, you go to supermarket in the United Kingdom, you go to check out. Every day you go there, more and more, you are being sent by a member of staff to use machine, self-service, which is actually a form of independence, a form of empowerment, a form of convenience. If you learn to do it, there are supervisors in the shop showing you how to use this machine. There you are asked whether you are going to use cash card, whether you're going to use card or cash. Either way, the machine already there. These are increasingly happening in retail stores, supermarkets, and in different type of retail stores. Retail sector was and is still is the leading employer of manpower, man or woman power in the United Kingdom, of human labor, if you like, of human resources, if you like. But now we are replacing human resources with technological resources, which is, in my opinion, is quite extremely exciting because see, it means we don't have to work anymore. We just we get whatever we like. I mean, if it succeeds, which I believe it is going to succeed, because technology cannot fail, science will never fail. Many things can fail, but it may take time. Our generation may not see it, but the signs are now here. There are traces which are already now occurring in in public transport, in airplanes, in vehicles, in housing. Even housing technology is changing, is improving, and we are getting better and better in the things we do, in the things we probably prospect to do in the future. And we live in exciting times, and we should be people who are extremely excited about our lives, about the life of the people we care about, or even the life of people we don't care about. Because as a cultural people, we are still a bit backward because we still fight. I mean, if you drive in the United Kingdom in roads, there's something called road rage, which means drivers are fighting. I mean, if you're driving, or you're sitting in a car or in a bus or in a taxi, whatever, somebody's bleeping, and they're bleeping very aggressively. They are actually fighting. The drivers are actually fighting. This is what we do. This is our behavior across the globe, not just in the United Kingdom. It's human situation, which is actually evidence of our cultural unawareness or lack of awareness, so to speak. So we need to now use education, which is at school, on the street, education in the community and families, education everywhere, to support our culture, to help us to value our life as individuals, to help us to value other people's lives, to teach us actually to build relationships with fellow humans, with our environment, with our pets, with wild animals, with nature. Build this relationship and live peacefully. We begin to take control of our lives, take control of our environment. The only thing we don't control to rule over is actually other humans. The reason there is war, the reason there is lack of peace, because there are individuals who rule over us. There is the ruling class and the slaves. I say this not to accuse people who are actually in power in the United Kingdom, because rule is a necessity. It is a necessary evil. Rule in a country like Britain or wherever rule occurs is evidence of there being a necessary evil which is happening in the United Kingdom, which is happening across the globe. So this should change through learning, through education. If we don't change, we will never have peace, because you see, wickedness knows no boundaries. We are the author and finisher of our fate. We decide what we do with our life, whether we are going to pursue peace, war, or violence. I will say, if we insist on ruling over one another, not desiring to learn to get out of the habit of the necessity to rule over one another, using money, using wealth, using every available resources to fighting for power and fame and glory. You cannot glory when you are wicked, because ruling over one another is a form of wickedness. We have to acknowledge the problem and solve the problem. Problem is we are actually intent on ruling over one another. At the same time, being intent on ruling over one another. What we have also done, we have actually negate. We are actually, we have actually failed to find a way of beginning a process of independence, of freedom. You see, we refer, right or wrongly, that of our countries in the West as the free world. We cannot be free if we live under the law. We set laws for purposes of compliance. We cannot be free. The law is not for freedom. The law is to make us do something, or to make us refrain from doing something. That is not freedom. We only get free when we shut down the system of rule. We now operate the rule of law, which is there to produce civil administrative infrastructure, as opposed to military administrative infrastructure, the kind you find in third world, developing worlds like Africa, which is actually largely Africa is being ruled by the military system, which is mixed with democracy. There is the signature, if you like, or the status of democracy in Africa is significantly different from democracy, say, in Europe, democracy in America, in Asia. We rule directly using guns and bombs in Africa. In Europe, in the United Kingdom, for example, we operate actually a system of civil bureaucracy, which is actually backed by militarism. One way or the other, the military reigns supreme. Even the law is possible by something called the security forces, or the law enforcement mechanism, like the police, private security, the military, the prison system. These are actually systems of force as opposed to consent. We may exercise consent during elections or during other dispensational processing, but when it comes to it, when we are actually to make to achieve compliance, we have to use the forces in the police, in the prison system, in the military. So in the end, democracy or no democracy, we operate to rule, to apply rule over other people. You don't rule over wild animals. Dogs and cats are actually extremely free if you compare to humans, because a dog can go as fast as it likes on. And if we, the human beings, learn to run 40 miles an hour, the police is going to set a speed limit. If you develop a capacity, if with robotics, it's now possible for people to run as fast as, I don't know what, 40, 50, 60 miles an hour. This is actually part of a robotics system, which is actually coming. And the human machine, symbiosis, you wear a suit which actually capacitates you to run as fast as a vehicle. So there's going to be a speed limit on when you are running on foot, wearing a certain gear, technological equipment. I'm just saying this because it appears humans have actually shot themselves in the foot by actually setting up a system of rules, setting up the government. Because we created the government, we created the legal system, and we became prisoners, whether we are rich or we are poor, because we are subject to the law. Although suffice it to say that the impact, the most intense impact of the rule actually fall on the people who are actually poor, who do not have money, who do not have power. Because money is power, and you can get access to the best lawyer if you are a multi-billionaire. there is a possibility of rich people actually operating fairly above the law, as opposed to people who are actually the underdogs, who are actually part of the class economy, which is either you are the lower class, the middle class, or the upper class. This is the reality. This is the fact. These are actually the truth. We may live in denial. We may actually play politics. We may play diplomacy. We are all diplomats in our own skins. But the truth remains that we are not really equal under the system of rule. The ruling class are actually the ones who are actually so powerful that they actually operate always above the law because they have money. Look at Boris Johnson, Prime Minister Boris Johnson. He broke the COVID rule. I don't know how much he was asked to pay. Even if he was asked to pay £1,000, £10,000, he could have afforded because he's a multi-millionaire. If somebody on benefit, on universal credit, broke the COVID law, they could have committed a crime, and the impact of the crime, one way or the other, could have led them into prison. So you could argue Rishi Sunak, who is now the current Prime Minister, who broke the COVID rule and got away with it because he had money to pay the fine. And the same goes with speeding, probably, unless they can. I mean, even if they take your driving license, you are caught speeding in the United Kingdom. If you lose your driving license, you have money to pay for Uber, or you can hire a private chauffeur to drive around in your black Bentley. You can afford to park in car parks in central London. You can afford to pay ULEZ. You can afford to pay congestion charges, parking charges. You can afford to pay taxes on the vehicle, what do you call it, road tax, insurance on your vehicle. You can afford this thing. But poor people cannot. The people who are actually on benefit, people who are on national minimum wage or national living wage, cannot afford certain privileges. They cannot fly as much as they could. During COVID, the restriction, rich people were able to afford to pay hotels and to live in hotels under quarantine. They were able to fly and not feel the impact of COVID restriction. Poor people were not able to travel, and with the cost of living crisis now, some people cannot go on holiday. Even the middle class are now being impacted, and the cost of living crisis might not go away very quickly because you see, things are changing. The things creating the cost of living crisis actually the impact of change, which is actually we are moving from public to private very rapidly. We are moving too fast and too deep. We are making cuts in public service, and we are actually getting rid of it because we need to develop a modern economy. We have to do reforms. When the government talks about reform, they'll talk about privatization. When they talk about trust, NHS, National Health Service Trust, that is privatization. When they talk about school academy or academy for learning, that is privatization. Most ambulances in the United Kingdom have been privatized, and people probably like it. Family doctor system is private. Whether we know it or whether we don't, it's our responsibility to know the situation. When you wait and wait and wait for months and months for dental treatment, and if you cannot access dental service because you have to pay for your dentistry to get actually a dentist. Even if you get a dentist, you still have to wait indefinitely. Even if you have a dentist, there's no guarantee that you're going to get dental service. And this is serious because people are going to start dying. And we either take our life seriously, we either engage more with our politicians who are responsible for policy, so that they change the way they behave with the process of privatization, because privatization is the one creating the problem. And the British people should be aware of that. If the government is not aware, if a government official, if a minister is watching this video, the message for the government, for this minister, that especially health secretary, health and social care secretary, if you are watching this video, if you're watching this video, know that privatization is preventing the British people, ordinary people who are not multimillionaires and multimillionaires, preventing them from accessing healthcare, including dentistry, including the GP practice. No matter what policy you set, as long as these services are privatized, they are not going to work, because private companies are there to make money. And you cannot blame them if they are shutting down the economy. They only leave enough to make the money, because that is the nature of the thing. And I don't understand why the British government or any other government would decide to privatize public service. Because you see, the police will be shutting down, the military will be shutting down, will be replaced by the machine, and accessing even security in the future, in the next 50 years, in the next 100 years, more and more, the emergency service. If you don't have money, you're not going to get the police service. If somebody is trying to kill you in your own home, if you still have a home, because you might be in a concentration camp sooner or later, because the housing is shutting down, public housing is shutting down, and if public housing shut down, those who are actually working for a living, the lower and the middle class, will actually not be able to access housing. I've been repeating this point, I will be repeating them going forward, and so that we try to really enter into a conversation to try and understand the dynamics, to try and understand what is really happening. And so the housing is going, and when you talk of universal credit, which I've been talking about, I'm actually now talking like I'm doing a review of universal credit, so that we move on with the specifics, because everything we do, everything we need, housing, energy, gas and electricity, water, food, transport, you need universal credit. If you don't work, if you have less than 6,000, if you have 6,000 pounds, you'll get the full benefit in terms of eligibility. I've already discussed this. So the best thing is to actually claim universal credit as soon as possible. There are people now sitting watching this video who are not working, but they have savings. If you have less than 16,000, if you have, say, for example, 15,000 pounds, go and claim universal credit. You will get some benefit, which will help you with rent, help you with council tax. We will support you with the cost of living. If you have 10,000, you will get even more. If you got 6,000 in savings and you're not working, you're going to be entitled, you'll be eligible. You're going to be eligible for the full benefit. The full benefit will pay your rent. If you are living in a big house, expensive house, then you're going to be subjected to the benefit cap. And if you're renting privately, I think there is something called, I can't remember it now, because the rules, I can't remember what it is. But you are going to be subject to the benefit cap anyway. But if you are living with grown-up adults who are not contributing to wealth rent, if you're on benefit, you're going to be your benefit is going to be reduced. There's going to be something called a non-dependent deduction, which means an adult 18 years or above, or 16 and 17 who are not in full-time education or in government full-time government-funded program, if they are not on one of those like apprenticeship or something like that, then they will be required to claim universal credit. And if they claim universal credit, they will be expected to contribute, because they will be considered as non-dependent adults, even if they are 16. But if they are in full-time education, like in university, they are in maybe not university really, but in education, normal education, college or school, or in youth training or anything which is funded by the government. They will be getting child benefit until they're, I think, 18. And as soon as they're 18 or between 18 and 21, and they're going to university, they will be getting student finance. In some circumstances, they may be getting universal credit. These information are on gov.uk, the website of the government. Your local authority, your local council have this information. Access it, even if you are not interested, even if it doesn't apply to you, because things can happen if you have a breathing space, because things will be changing very rapidly. Because you may be working, you may be given a 0-hour contract, you may be self-employed, and especially if you're self-employed, your income will be fluctuating. Sometimes you make money, sometimes you don't. If maybe you are a taxi driver, maybe you are running a shop or a restaurant or doing delivery or whatever you're doing really. Because the idea is that you are supposed to access the basic necessities. But I have said that the best way to handle benefits in the first place, especially universal credit, is for the government to raise the level of benefits. Because the reason people access benefits and stay in poverty is because the level of benefit is too low. There is wealth in the country. Britain is the 6th richest country in the world. You should speak to multimillionaires and multimillionaires, including members of the royal family. And also, certain individuals like the current British Prime Minister, Rishi Sunak. I understand, I don't really know, but I heard that he is worth in excess of 200 million pounds, I think. And these people are actually wealthy. The royal family are actually measured, I think, in billions in terms of family estate, in billions, tens of billions of pounds. If I'm correct, if you leave a comment below if you know how much wealth the royal family have. And I think people need to be aware, actually, if a member of the royal family is watching this video, they realize that the British people are extremely suffering. They're very, very poor. I understand you may not be in touch with the real world on the ground. You may not even know what poverty is, because probably as a member of the royal family, you have never been poor. You have never probably met anybody who is poor. You don't really read about poverty. If you read about it, then you read in it in a way where you don't really understand. Probably if you're lucky enough, a member of the royal family, maybe Prince William, Kate Middleton, Princess Middleton, King Charles, and all these people, if you're lucky enough to engage with an MP who may be actually, because if you're an MP, you should know what poverty is. And I don't understand why British Parliament cannot deal with poverty in the United Kingdom. I will never understand, because there is so much wealth. These people are given power. They are elected to actually manage the economy. They should, the first thing an MP should know, the first thing a government minister, including the prime minister, the first thing they should know is that British people are suffering from poverty. If you work for a living, even if you are actually in the middle class, because people are in debt, there is a lot of borrowing going up. I mean, people borrow to buy their home, and universal credit does not actually pay mortgage. Mortgage is actually a credit. Credit means debt. You are in debt because you want a house to live in. Now, in my opinion, the government should actually build houses for the British people, either to rent in an affordable way. I mean to say, I don't know how to say this. If you work for a living and you are on the minimum wage, national minimum wage, the government should pay your rent. If the government wants to get you out of poverty, because I think not a single person, not a single British person should be in poverty. If the government doesn't have money, then rich people in Britain should actually set up a non-governmental charity. Set up a charity, a trust, call it whatever you like, but a voluntary organization. Set it up. If the royal family or the ruling family of whatever, business leaders, business emperors, super rich, multimillionaires and multimillionaires in Britain, you need to come together. You need to come together as a community during your free time. Talk to your fellow rich, talk to fellow millionaires, talk to fellow billionaires, because the government no longer has money. It doesn't have money because it's not allowed. The government, the British government is not allowed to tax, to put up taxes. Because you see, it's a political time bomb. The Labour Party now cannot actually speak. Because it has to explain every time a British politician, the Labour Party politician is asked, because the election is just a few months away. So the Labour Party has now to explain to the British people if they are going to tax the British people, if they are going to borrow the money, because you see, fundamentally, if we are to finance the public sector, the British people who are going to vote, ask yourself, if the government is to provide public sector, how is the government going to do that? The British people are saying the government should not tax them. Where will the government get money to finance the public sector? The government, the British government, should actually explain to the British people, the Conservative MP, the Liberal Democrat, Labour Party, all the MPs, including King Charles. I know they are not supposed to be involved in politics, but we all talk about poverty. The king can talk about poverty, and I wish the king quickly came recovery. And also, my prayer for the royal family of Great Britain, of the United Kingdom. But people who have wealth should now begin to talk to each other and actually set up a system where there is money. Money is to be put there for a specific purpose. The first thing is actually to make sure the British people, everybody in Britain, can access food, energy, water, medical care, can access education, training if they need it. But we start with food and energy. But immediately we mention food and energy and water, we mention housing immediately. These people should not be homeless. And the process of accessing a home, privately or publicly, it should be accessible. Because if people don't access homes, they're going to be homeless. And in a country like Britain, for people to be homeless is totally unthinkable. I do not understand. I mean, I wish I could speak to a minister. I wish I could meet the king. And ask the king, Britain is so rich. The royal family is so wealthy. Why are the British people living in poverty? The middle class have to borrow. If they don't borrow money, overnight they're going to be poor. Although they may not be living in poverty, being the middle class now, they're in debt. Almost anybody earning between 30,000, 40,000, 50, 60, even 100,000. I spoke to someone who was in debt to the tune of nearly 900,000 because he lost his business. He was a lawyer, he was a solicitor. He's British, white, in his 40, in his 50, and he was depressed, he was anxious. Here in this country, you can just get from being a good lawyer, a good doctor, somebody really a good engineer, a good economist, a good journalist, a good actor, movie star, to being on the street. It can happen. And so, we have the brains. The politicians, the ministers went to the best schools, rightly so, because we entrust the running of our country to them. I am talking about the United Kingdom, but I am African, in case you didn't notice. I come from Africa. I'm supposed to be talking about Africa, but I live in the UK. And I will also be talking about Africa, because Africa is part of the globe. And if you're British, if you're English, white, start thinking about Africa. Don't just think about yourself. Don't just think about England. Think about Wales, Scotland, and Northern Ireland. Also think about Europe. Think about Asia and America. All the continent, all the global area, because we are actually members of the global community. There should be no poverty anywhere, including in Africa. I can understand if there are diseases, if we cannot treat every sickness, that is a different thing. But as in terms of poverty, we live in a world of technology. I mean, when you talk about energy in Africa, America, Asia, Europe, these three continents, including certain individuals in Africa who are so rich, they are measured in billions, tens, sometimes even probably also hundreds of billions of US dollar. These individuals with their governments can come together as a global community to open up solar farm on Sahara Desert or in any of the part of the world in Africa. Solar panels. Africa will be energy independent within 10 years, within a decade. The question are asked to the British government: why is Africa living in fuel poverty? Why is Africa living in food poverty? Wheat can grow in Africa. Rice can grow in Africa. Millet can grow in Africa. Shim, cassava. All such anything growable agriculturally can grow in Africa. Why is Africa living in poverty? Africa is supposed to be the global food basket. It should grow food for Europe. It should grow food for America, for Asia, Africa. There is clean water, fossil water, fresh water under the earth in Africa. All the rivers, River Nile, Lake Victoria, named after Queen Victoria of England during colonialism, ran in East Africa, ran from East Africa in Uganda along the River Nile into the Mediterranean Sea. I think the Mediterranean Sea in the Middle East is a fresh water, probably the biggest body of water which is actually fresh. These resources can be managed. Israel now is developing technology, actually implementing technology to desalinate, which is actually cleansing the sea water, which is salty, so that it is fresh, it's drinkable. If Israel can do it, America can do it. Israel is in Asia, is in the Middle East, is in Asia. It can, China can do it. So when we fail to access seawater for drinking, for everybody, and also for irrigation, drought is still destroying crops in Africa and other parts of the world. We still have food shortage. Children are dying of hunger in Africa. The world is watching in silence. For goodness sake, what has happened to us as a species? We are human. What are we doing? And that's why I'm talking about the cost of living as an opportunity to illustrate our plight, the situation we have. What has happened to us? Do we still care for our lives? If the developed world cannot care about Africa, Africa are actually black people. If you watch news, there are actually black people everywhere in Africa. They are black. We are actually black people in Africa. We are Africans. Africa, the children in Africa walking barefooted, they can go to school because of they can afford school fees. They can afford to go to school. Young children in Africa in the 21st century, and we have Britain, member of the Commonwealth of Africa, of Canada, America, wherever, the British Commonwealth. Why? How comes that Britain cannot speak to Europe? The IMF and the World Bank are funding Africa, and they are ring fencing this funding such that Africa is actually not allowed to develop a welfare system. The fact of the matter, Africa being mainly funded by Europe through the IMF and the World Bank, do not have the welfare benefit. There is no child benefit. There is no universal credit in Africa. The entire continent, there is no universal credit. There is no public housing. Anyone. People live in sacks. People live in, if you go to Kibera in Kenya, or Soweto, I think in South Africa, or in any of the slum, where the poorest of the poor of the world live there, these places are hell on earth. They should not be shown on television. Nobody should even go there to see it, because you will be so shocked that there are places on earth in the 21st century still people are still living in a cow. Even animals will die if they live where people live. If you see the water people drink in Africa, are you think that how do these people survive? If Europeans go to live like African in Africa, they will die within a week. They will go extinct. And we allow this to happen. And it is actually coming back to haunt us in Europe, in America. We are shutting down the public sector for no reason at all. There is no reason why there is no economic logic. There is no political expedience it's a form of, I don't even know how to describe it. Why are we shutting down the public sector? Public sector is supposed to redistribute wealth, to take some of the wealth being wasted by the super rich and given to people who are dying of poverty in the United Kingdom. What has happened to us as humans? I have been talking about cultural economy, which means being human. We in the United Kingdom, we call each other strangers. Are we really strangers? Yes, we are. And that is the problem. It's not a source of pride. It should be a source of shame to the British people, to the people in the United Kingdom, referring to each other as strangers. I try to avoid this topic because I want to talk about universal credit. But if I don't mention why we have to be on universal credit, then we may not understand. Because you see, the government, the British government has said it in writing, in policy documents, in policy material, advising the British people to go into, I call it concentration camp. Because you see, if you have to leave your home, you have to run away and actually travel in buses, because buses are warm. Go to supermarkets, because supermarkets are warm. Shopping centers are warm. Go on the trains, and trains are not affordable now. It's super expensive. You have to go using a bus. Buses are becoming more expensive, almost impossible to ride on. The temperature during winter is so cold that it is not even worth going to travel in bus. Elderly people are traveling in buses to keep warm, because it is cheaper to travel around the buses all day instead of being in your home. You just go and travel in buses and staying in super malls because it's warmer. And the government is treating the British people this way. What has happened to us as human beings? We are human. We should never ever behave like we are behaving. Going onto the street, people are acting strangers. People start arguing at any time in buses, in cars, beeping horns, hurling inside. And this is what we are doing. Why are we strangers? Why are we strangers? We are humans. We now live with pets, dogs and cats. They are our best friends. The hatred we are developing with one another in Europe, in Africa, in Asia, in America. How long have we got before we go extinct? It is us. This is our life. This is our culture, our humanity. What have we done? What have we done to ourselves? We talk about universal credit. That's okay. There are information on the website of Citizen Advice. There are information on the government website, gov.uk. You read until your eye pops because they are so complex. They are legal material. They are policy material. I never liked it. I don't really like policy. I don't like law because they are really, really complicated. But it is our life. Go and learn how to read it even if you are blind. If I'm correct, I think the government can give you a version for blind people. You can actually ask for that. In any official document, I think in the United Kingdom, you can get if you're a blind person. And also, if you have learning disability, I think you can get this information. It's because you have to take responsibility for your life. We have created a society of jungle. Jungle means everyone for himself, God for us all. Actually, jungle also means God has forgotten the world. The feeling, I mean to say. So for those who believe in God, including Christians, if you are Muslim, if you are whatever faith, if you believe in God, you know God is always faith, just and faithful. If you are a Christian, I am a Christian. I received Christianity from Britain. The British actually took Christianity to Africa during colonialism. Colonialism means the British went and took our country and turned our countries. In turned Africa, not just the British, the Europeans colonized Africa. Colonization means the Europeans went, at some point they went to Africa and took Africa by force from Africans and made Africa the European continent. And Africans became slaves in their own continent. That is what happened. That is what colonialism means. Imperialism. You see that the setting up of the British or the European Empire. That is what imperialism means. So, the British people in Uganda, I come from Uganda. In case you want to know, I'm a Ugandan. I live in the United Kingdom. The British government has allowed me to live here. If it actually asked me to leave the United Kingdom, then I will leave and go back to my country in Africa. But Africa or out of Africa, we are actually, what do you call us? Members of the British Commonwealth. You are an Africa, if you are an African from East Africa, at least in East Africa, we are former British colonies. We call ourselves members of the British Commonwealth, which means we share the wealth of Africa with Britain, and Britain also share British wealth with Africans. If there is Commonwealth, then why is there poverty in Africa? Why are there people in Africa who are multi-millionaires and multi-billionaires in US dollar in Africa, including in East Africa? If you are not a former British colony, then you are a French colony, former French colony, or Belgian colony, or probably even Germany. Germany used to rule East Africa. It used to be called German East Africa as a colony. But Britain was actually the once was the singly most powerful country colonizing Africa, including ultimately South Africa. Southern Africa, East Africa, and parts of North Africa, because it was actually British Empire. The British Empire was actually ruling the world at that time. So Britain was actually, it took over from Rome, because the Roman, now Italy, it was the Roman Empire actually during the time of Christ, when Jesus Christ was born in Jerusalem. The Romans were the one ruling Palestine. The Middle East, they ruled the world. They will rule England. Most of the roads built in the United Kingdom is built by the Romans. And architecture, everything. So see, we are very Roman in our heritage. So the British somehow took over power elsewhere over the globe. And I think their power centered over on the estate of religion, of Christendom. Also the Roman Catholic Church, which is actually an Italian initiative, then formerly known as the Roman Empire, and the Roman Catholic Church, which was introduced to Uganda, my country, by the French mainly. And globally, actually, Roman Catholicism actually, especially in Europe, they are bigger than anybody. They are the biggest Christian denomination in Europe. And I think also probably in America also, I don't know. But in Asia, incidentally, I think Anglicanism is more in Asia somehow, if I remember correctly. Perhaps also in Africa, I'm not sure. And that is how we learn about Christianity. We learn about God in the Christian context. And therefore, if we live in the jungle, we pray to God to save us. And Britain now, Europe, the modern world is turning into a jungle. The streets are turning into a form of nightmare. Because the level of violence now brewing on the street are sooner or later going to be sustainable. The rich multimillionaires and multimillionaires are going to start digging holes, tunnels to hide from violence. This is the truth. I believe if we begin to talk about this, we will actually come back to our senses, because the power is on our mind. Just to change, to become friends, to become families, to become human, other than being aliens, other than being wild animals, cat and dog. We are humans. We look after our own species. And that is the point. The cost of living is created because we have lost our humanity. The cost of living is created by an extreme form of immorality, social immorality, political violence. You see, social malaise, social confusion. We are actually in trouble. And I say this to everybody, including, I'm not accusing anyone. I'm just trying to say we need to really reflect on our lives, because our lives matter. We used to say Black Lives Matter in America, or even wherever that slogan spread. Yes, Black Lives Matter. Black lives matter, but white life also matter. Human life matter. If your life doesn't matter, then you have to think again. Because you see, the logic of being a human being, even, I mean, if you feel pain, physical pain, mental pain, emotional pain, then you are good to go. You are a human being. It means your life matters. If you don't feel it, then you are not a human being. You are probably a robot. And then you're programmed to think you're human, but you're not human if you don't feel pain. Physical pain, emotional pain. If it is cold, you don't feel it. If it is hot, you don't feel it. If it is freezing, you don't suffer. If you haven't eaten, you don't suffer. If you cannot access dental care, you don't feel suffering. If you cannot access medical care, you don't suffer. Then you are not human. Leave us alone. We are human. We feel pain. And it is not necessary, especially at the environmental level, at the developmental level. There is money, there is wealth. Distribute wealth through public policy and public service. If you are in the United Kingdom, if you are a government which want to make sense of yourself, if you want peace, at least a chance of having the capacity even to change our culture, to start building peaceful relationships, we have to start by eradicating poverty. And the private sector does not produce wealth unless it achieves wealth creation through technology and using also science and research, which will happen. But you see, if we get wealth and we don't actually learn peace, we are going to weaponize wealth. And wealth is going to kill us faster. Technology, we are actually producing some of the most efficient technology. Robotics, for example. If we build artificially intelligent robot or human machine, and they learn violence, then we will actually begin to see what level of trouble we are in. Instead of robotics building us houses, instead of 3D printer building us homes, vehicles, aircraft within days or weeks without human hand. This machine will be autonomous, they will be intelligent, they will be capable in terms of physical and mental dexterity. This is coming. This is real. Not science fiction it used to be, but increasingly it is becoming a reality. Technology, artificial intelligence especially, now actually being applied even within the public sector, within the civil service, within the private sector. We are seeing changes, and it is exciting. Potentially it's going to be liberating, but if we don't learn peace, these are going to turn into, instead of instrument of wealth and enlightenment, it's going to be a weapon of mass destruction. Thank you for watching this video. We have actually done an overview. I've been mentioning universal credit, but if you watch this video and watch the rest of the video, I have actually been specific. If you need help, if you don't need help, how to get universal credit, what it is. I'll continue to go into more detail as we carry on, but I will stop from time to time to reflect on our lives as humans, because we can't just sit here and talk about money all the time. Our lives are more than money. We need to be happy, and money can support us to achieve happiness. But money alone, we have seen super millionaires, multi-billionaires. Some of the most miserable people are actually multi-billionaires. They don't even know how to laugh. They don't even know. All that they think about money because of violence. If they have money, they have to protect it, protect their life. They are in prison. Literally, rich people are in prison, and sometimes you begin to wonder, because see, the grass may be green on the other side, but is it really necessary? Yes, it is. Because you can't afford to live in poverty. Living in poverty is even worse. But if you are rich, you are in trouble. You have to really spend your money to hire security. You don't even trust them because they're humans. If they're a machine, you might not even trust them because they may catch the virus and begin to kill you, begin to destroy your wealth. You wake up in one morning, your money is gone because the machine got mad. The computer had a bad dream. Anyway, your wealth of in 100 years, in 500 years, we may be experiencing situations like this. So we need to learn peace. And so that when our machines come, we want to teach them peace. Because if we don't know peace, we are going to teach them violence and war. And the machine is going to turn into monsters. Thank you once more for your patience. Subscribe to this channel if you have watched up to this time. Share, click like, and share with family and friends. Click notification bell. Leave a comment below. Let's talk about good things. Let us talk about serious things. And let's talk about nice things. We are humans and we are here to stay. Thank you. See you in the next video. Thank you. Bye-bye.